All right. So it looks like Liz is first. Oh, yeah, the anti-encryption bill. Boy, everybody is screaming about this.
Yeah, it's bad. It's worse than I thought. I knew it was going to be bad, but it's extra bad. So, as is predictable, essentially, the government is asking for something that's really not that feasible. That would actually call for redesign of these complete redesign of these systems for them to be legally usable, and that's not super feasible. And they're also asking for some other kind of insane things here, but we'll see what happens. This again is just to reiterate something I've said in the past. This is the kind of thing that makes me want to get a law degree, because people who understand the technical aspects of technology really should be involved in policy making. And it's clear to us over and over again, this is yet another example that is not
I think we might have lost Liz.
the case.
Oh,
People that are making the,
We're back. Yeah, well, I think that's why, Josh Corman started his I Am the Cavalry. He said we need real security people to be in Washington helping people, because, they don't know what they're doing, and they will pass some stupid laws, and they need like technical people to help them get the technology right.
Yeah, so.
And I mean, for years, they've been, I, in my position as the token fascist, I've been saying, we really should write some kind of government backdoor in there, because if we don't, they will just make it up from the political side and demand something outrageous. But anyway, the up till now, the lockstep of the crypto community has been, it cannot be done. There is no way to ever respond to a court order request for information. We just can't get in. And yet they do get in over and over and over. They pay a hacker to hack in. They get the encrypted email people to put malware on their website to steal the passwords. The fact is, there are ways in. And you can either have a controlled door you create, or you can just make them keep breaking in. Those are your choices.
It really seems like a non-problem also to legislate. That you can get into everything now. So what's the issue? Why are we doing this? This seems like the government
is the last frontier in privacy. Probably that's
yeah. And I mean, some of these constraints are just stupid. Like any device that has more than a gigabyte of storage and sells more than 1 million units a year. Okay, so everybody's going to go back to flip phones to circumvent this rule.
Well, I mean, the fact is 90% of criminals will just use whatever they can find. So they're right that just having easy way into the popular thing is what would work for most cases. And the thing about the current situation is only the more rich law enforcement agencies can afford to hire a good enough hacker to hack in. So, I have some sympathy with their goal here, unlike most people in tech, but I'm sure they're doing it. They're looking for the lawmakers creating this rule obviously don't know anything and will write the stupidest possible rule. So
yeah, I've done a fair amount of investigations on computers, and cryptography has never stopped me before, and I don't understand why we need it now, but okay.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to see. I don't know if they really need it either, but I think it's going to happen. And if we don't have a controlled way for it to happen, we'll have an uncontrolled way. It's sort of like, teaching sex ed or hacking in school. I mean, you can get over pretending it's not happening and get down to actually trying to control it. Anyway, hopefully this particular law will wash out. This one I thought was amazing. This is something I'd like to try.
Yeah.
Put script in the fave icon and it runs?
Yes.
It's real?
Wait, no.
Here it is. I know. I said, I've got to, look, here it is. This is the fave icon. And in the copyright, you put eval and this runs. I mean,
no.
I know. That was my feeling. This is awesome. If you could do that, that's insane. I assume they'll patch every browser to quit doing that. I mean, they've been this way all along. That's incredible.
Yep.
And I haven't even tried that because, of course that would never work. I mean, every browser just does this. That can't be intentional. I mean, you're not supposed to run script in the image.
For the browser side, since when does a fave icon have anything to run other than showing the picture?
But apparently they're doing
it. Why would they pass that information to the JavaScript interpreter?
I know. That's why I'd like to see proof of concept and play with this. If you can do that, that's awesome.
I mean, I can think of that's probably like the hardest way to get a JavaScript onto a website, but that's amazing. It works.
I know. Well, you could, if you just get them to go to your malicious website, it'd be a way to come in. Anyway, in the exit.
I mean, if you have a malicious website, you can just throw JavaScript on the webpage and.
But if you want to be more sneaky.
Well, I guess you could, yeah, but putting malware in the EXIF data, I never thought.
Yes.
Wait,
could that work for like JPEGs?
Apparently, yes. And by the way, the fave icon is an ICO file. It's supposed to be a GIF. What's it doing with metadata anyway? That's why a lot of this is bothering me. You can't use a JPEG as your fave icon. It's got to be an ICO file, which is a bitmap or a GIF, I thought. I'm confused anyway. Yeah, this is an ICO. And
look at the MIME type, image JPEG. It's a JPEG ICO.
JPEG, I've never tried that. I never thought you could. Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, it's pretty exciting stuff. We'll have fun playing with that. Yeah. And
wait, let's let Irvin talk about it a little bit because we kind of were just jaw dropping.
You said everything I was going to say. I amazing the article. You guys ran with it. That's all that I needed to do. My job here is done. I'm out.
You looked done. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yet another hallmark of a good manager. I think you have a good future ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have had this discussion with students who are going to be on running a team and stuff, and I'd say, it's not about being the smartest in the room. It's actually about being sort of the humblest in the room. Are you able to say, well, I don't know. What do you think? Let's do it your way. That's what you need to do.
So this is scary. So in order to do business with China, you obviously have, tax and regulation and stuff like that. And in order to do these taxes for China, you have to put on this tax software from the Golden Tax Department. And so all these companies are putting this on their system. And it turns out that the software that you need to do taxes for China contains spyware and malware.
Surprise.
Awesome.
And wide open door into system level privileges.
Yep.
Awesome. And
that's what the U.S. government should do. Instead of passing all these laws that say, hey, we need to add, encryption to say, hey, if you want to do business in the United States, you want to pay taxes, use our tax software.
Actually, they tried to do this, but there were lobbyists from H&R Block and TurboTax that stopped them from doing so.
But if we tell the U.S. government that if they ignore TurboTax and H&R Block and have everyone just download the U.S. government software, that they can just insert backdoors into it, and they can have access to everyone's computers and information. And I'm pretty sure the government would like that a lot.
Maybe
apparently.
with the Earn It Act, maybe there's a rider on there that will allow them to put spyware in TurboTax.
Well, the sound of this, it sounds like it wasn't intentional. It was the regional local tax. It wasn't the federal government. I would imagine it's probably just somebody put in the malware.
How many people, okay, let's take a poll. How many people think that once the Chinese government read this, they're like, that's a great idea. Let's do it in our national talk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't already a federal idea and they're like, let's try it with a small group.
Right? This was the test.
Yeah, this is the test. That's my feeling. This was just a test.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of Uber's Safe Rider fee, where they just gave everyone $1 and did nothing. But now they had something called a Safe Rider fee, and they said, we promoted customer safety.
But this has to be intentional, though, because look what it says. It says the Golden Spy is not downloaded until after 2 hours after you've already installed it. So they're obviously trying to like hide their tracks. No, this is intentional.
Sure, it's not a mistake, but I
Yeah.
think it might just be criminals putting, so it might not be the government that put it there. It might just
Okay, Sam.
well, I mean, because you remember we went to China with the USB sticks, everything's infected. Things are pretty dirty in China. A lot of everything you download is full of malware. And it's not from the government, it's from all the crooks. I mean, this could be, it could also be the government, but I don't know why a local government would do this. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know enough about Chinese government. Anyway, but it's interesting they found it.
It's the federal government who was testing out the small group.
I don't think they're that organized. I think that's kind of like what went wrong with the coronavirus. The federal government actually wanted to like do it right, but all the regional governments don't want to admit their failures. So there's like, they're like out of control of their minions. China's not that organized like we think they are. Anyway, that's my opinion. Not that I know anything. Anyway, and then, right, so Apple's going to ARM, and I got more information about it because this is very interesting. By the end of the year, Apple's going to be selling ARM-based Macs, which I'm very interested in. I started doing ARM memory exploits and stuff. And so now they explain that the reason they did it is because Intel's quality control is so terrible. Intel shipped them broken stuff, had all kinds of problems, and Apple wasted a whole bunch of their time having to remake stuff because Intel did not make it up to their quality control standards. That's what motivated them, which I think is also what happened in the old days with the old Motorola stuff. And what they say here is that it's going to come out by the end of the year. Then there's going to be a 2-year transition period, and then that'll be it. No more Intel. And they, just like they did with Motorola. And the other thing, which is very interesting, which they did with Motorola, they had a emulation running on it, and they're going to do it again, Rosetta 2. The ARM machines are going to have Intel emulation in the hardware, so they can run all the old Intel programs, and they've already demonstrated like games and Microsoft Office running on the ARM-based prototype.
Yeah, they did that in the keynote. My question is this going to be the push to get ARM on the desktop for everybody else, like Dell and HP, to start selling laptops with ARM and basically start the death of Intel?
Well, I think it's the way it always is. Apple is always the front runner. They always do something that's like 5 years ahead of everybody else, like get rid of the floppy drive and all this jazz. And then some of the things they do, everyone says, oh, we're not going to do that. And sometimes they were a trendsetter and people follow them. I think what it is a shot across Intel's bow. They say, look, your product is crap. You either have to make a better product or be replaced by ARM. And Intel will probably respond by trying to improve their product. And then Microsoft will have to choose either to move to ARM or not to move to ARM.
Microsoft does have a Windows version for ARM to run on the Pi, I think. Like specifically to run on the Pi.
They made a Windows 8 that ran on the ARM, and it was terrible. But
Windows 8 is terrible.
But
no, Windows 8 for ARM is especially terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not compare to that. Let's go with 10.
But Microsoft could move to ARM, and there's a lot of pressure to do that, especially for servers. So I mean, I think that's a decision that will come. They're going to probably let Apple do it first and see what happens. But apparently the iPad Pro is already running on the new ARM chip, and it works perfectly fine. So I think it's going to work. And then the only question will be performance. And they're currently arguing about it. As you know, performance is really complicated. It's faster for some things and slower for some things. So I think they'll see. But I think PCs, I think the big reason people love PCs is they're cheaper, and the second reason is for games. And nobody really wants to run games on their Mac that much. And so I don't know.
I mean, I can tell you as someone who works in the security field, I use a Mac because it gives me access to Mac OS, Windows, Linux, all the operating systems all on one system. Mm-hmm. And this move to ARM, it does not appeal to me one bit because I don't care about performance. I just want to be able to have one machine that I can, test vulnerabilities on every operating system. And this move to ARM has devalued Macs, for me anyway.
Yeah, I'm putting almost everything in the cloud now, so I don't care.
Well,
the emulator would probably be good enough for me.
One other consideration is, at least for some time, they're going to have to keep releasing updated versions of iOS or OS Mac OS that will run on Intel architecture to
Yeah.
support their machines are already out in the market. Though I wonder if they're going to stop that.
They say there
eventually.
already are a bunch of new versions of Intel-based stuff still going to come out. There'll be a
Yeah.
2-year transition period.
Yeah. So my guess is next year will be the last year, and
Yeah.
2022 will be the big push to trade in your old Mac with Intel for the Apple Silicon.
Yeah, and that's why they say actually it's probably a bad time to buy a Mac because historically, usually the last ones of the line that's dying are no good, and the first ones of the new line are no good. So
Yeah.
you really ought to like wait a couple of years before buying another Mac if you want a high quality machine.
That and
Like
like
buy an ARM-based one, by the way, 'cause I'm very interested in ARM. I'd like
Yeah.
to switch to ARM like today.
yeah, and
I'm wondering if the 14-inch MacBook Pro that's supposed to come out towards the end of the year is going to be whether that's going to be Intel or ARM.
We'll
I guess
see.
if it's-
Apple is famously very secretive about this stuff.
That's the one I've been holding out. I'm like trying to limp my old machine along for,
Yeah, my guess is it'll be ARM. Anything coming out from this year forward will be ARM based. At least that's what they said in their keynote.
Well, now that I'm beginning to accept that this virus thing is basically going to be with us forever, I'm thinking maybe I should get like a desktop server kind of thing instead of a laptop with sort of a docking station, which is what I've arranged here. There isn't going to be any traveling for years, so I might as well have a brick. Anyway, so I'll see what they have. Anyway,
I was optimistic before now, but now I'm not so optimistic because we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot. So
no, the thing that got me, is I don't think what the U.S. does matters. What matters is looking at other nations like China and Europe where they've got it under control. But the thing that got me was a podcast a couple days ago where they said the flu when the vaccine comes out, it's going to be like the flu vaccine. It's going to be 30% effective. It's not going to be like the polio vaccine where it's gone and you can go back to normal life. For years, nobody's going to go to airplanes, movie theaters, security conferences, parties, coffee shops. That's all over. Those businesses are all going to go.
People are doing those things, which is, kind of.
Yeah, but they're going to.
Theory that's perpetuating this, but.
But that there not enough people are going to do it to keep those businesses alive. And so basically, life is not going to return to what it was before anytime soon. This is going to be a permanent change society where you spend a lot more time at home. You do everything over Zoom. You don't travel to conferences. You don't get in crowded classrooms or physical space office meetings much or going out to eat. All that stuff is pretty much going to be gone because if you cut the number of people that will do it by half, then none of the businesses can survive.
So going to the desktop question, why get a brick if you can get like a Raspberry Pi?
Well, Raspberry Pi is way too weak. I just need something pretty powerful and so it can run all these monitors effectively. My little laptop kind of strange. So
yeah,
I've been a little more powerful.
Yeah, I will say I've been trying to do some upgrading myself. I'm running a i5 5600, so it's a few generations old. So I was thinking I should just upgrade to the newest i9 that just came out. And Intel cannot stock their stuff right now because of the coronavirus.
Yeah,
everybody's upgrading. Yeah, I know. I ran a script to like crack Java encoded stuff, and it ran my machine at 1060%. I said, wait a minute, how many cores does this thing have anyway? And it's got like 6 cores with hyperthreading. The thing I'm using. That's pretty good. And the ARMs, by the way, say they're going to have 8 cores, 4 low power cores, and 4 high performance cores for different jobs. That's how they do it. So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The new Mac will be a big change, and it'll change the whole world of memory corruption exploits into a brave new world. So I'm sure, by the way, the first generation will be all full of fascinating security flaws. So that's why I love it. The new thing is always broken as hell, like IP version 6, which is my cue. So this one I heard about it. This is why everybody said they're not going to do face recognition, because they all figured out it doesn't work. But Liz, you got something to say about this one? Did we lose you again?
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection is kind of sketchy right now
Yeah.
for some reason. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, so yeah, this is actually a really important story, I thought, and it's really, really good, and it's something that everybody should, probably take the time to read through and think about, because it's sort of a glimpse into the future. Essentially, this guy may be the first American to have been mistakenly fingered by AI for a crime.
Can I venture a guess and say that this person has a darker complexion?
He does, and that's part of the issue in that NIST did a study a few years back or some time ago on the accuracy of these AI photo recognition systems, and they found that it worked fairly well for white men, but for other groups, especially considering African Americans and Asians, it was 10 to 100 times less accurate.
Right.
And so again, what happened with this guy was somebody shoplifted some watches from a boutique, and they pulled pictures from the surveillance camera, and fingered this guy, and then arrested him for it. And he's trying to tell him, like, no, that wasn't me. Like, this robbery happened in like 2018, and he'd been there once when the store opened in like 2014 with his wife. And he was like, obviously these are not the same person. Like, you can look at me and my picture next to these surveillance images, and they're not the same. And they're like, well, sorry, you're not free to go. And
the computer is right.
Yeah, the computer's right. Even though the copy had even said, like, I guess the computer screwed up, but then they doubled back on it and said, you're not free to go. And they made him bond out and miss work for like the first time in 4 years, and go through all this hell over something that he didn't do.
Yep.
So welcome to the future of the digital panopticon, which, right off the bat, we're seeing has some glaring problems, yet we're relying on this as if it were gospel and locking people up and potentially ruining their lives based on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so American to write software for law enforcement that is by default already racist.
Yeah,
it is. It's
I can hardly wait for
it's so absurd that it's almost funny.
Where they just shoot somebody based on their software. He's the bad guy, shoot him. I can see that coming. Maybe that's why they all got out of face recognition for now.
It reminds me, I know you haven't seen this, Sam, but you got to. It reminds me of the robot cops in Idiocracy, where it's like somebody's trying to put money into a vending machine, and they're like, you're a bad mother because you don't have enough money. You're under arrest.
Yeah, it sounds like Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an important case. I regard this as a fairly happy story. He didn't actually get killed, but still, yeah.
But he did still have like lasting psychological trauma, and now his kids are confused, and his daughter's like wants to play games with them all the time, where it's cops and robbers, and dad's always the robber who has to get locked up and go to jail. I mean, this stuff has lasting ramifications.
Yeah. And also, I mean, if it becomes popular to use face recognition, there'll be a lot more until somebody does get killed. So it's good to catch it before it gets any worse.
But even though we've caught it, are we going to do anything about it? That's my question.
Yep, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer. Anyway, so this is, I thought Microsoft hasn't let us defer any updates in years. You just have to hack it.
Well, you could defer it up to a year.
Well, that's a big step forward, but apparently they're taking it away, huh?
Yeah, they took it away, and now you can pause updates up to 35 days. And then you have to install it, and then it has to get installed. The only workaround is if you have Pro or Enterprise, and you can configure it from GPO.
There are a bunch of hacks to go around this. And it's one of the more popular. This reminds me of like when Windows 8 came out, one of the most popular tech support things was to upgrade your machine back to Windows 7. You pay money for this.
Yeah.
And now you pay money to block the stinking updates because like the last 4 updates in a row have all killed machines. It's like for 3 years, they've been forcing these updates and they're crap. They break the machine. And so the official way I got from EdBot was to go and make your connection a metered connection. So they think I pay by the gigabyte. That'll stop the updates from coming down. The best solution is one Kirk found, though. He said you can just find the Windows Update service and turn it off in Task Manager, and then it will never update, which worked pretty well on Windows 10, at least up to like a year ago. I don't know if it still works.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely using a hack is what you got to do because the updates are horrible. You certainly can't use automatic update. All the main experts I've heard have said you got to turn off Windows Update like 2 years ago because it will just kill your machine. I don't know what's wrong with Microsoft because updates are important for security, but their quality is so low you can't trust them.
Kind of
Well,
like
That,
with the
and
chip.
how many people have either experienced this yourself or seen it happen where the forced updates happen at some sort of crucial time, like when someone's trying to give a presentation off their Windows machine to a crowd of thousands of people. I've seen that happen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's insane.
Oh yeah. And I remember back in the days of Windows XP, there were machines that were rebooting in the middle of surgery. The anesthesia machine was running a Windows XP. It's putting on updates and stuff.
Oh man.
It's a big problem. I mean, they write that you need to get the updates out, but you need to test them.
But what's not just that, it's just that the updates aren't just bug fixes. They're adding new features.
Right.
And that was the whole thing of Windows 10. It was going to be the last version of Windows, but it's just going to have updates and just add new features with the updates.
And I mean, some of this is just like bloaty cruft that you don't need at all, need or want, but they force it on you.
Yeah.
Windows mixed reality is going to take off any day now.
Mixed reality. What's that?
I don't want to ruin it for you, Sam.
What's that?
I don't want to ruin it for you. Mixed reality.
Mixed reality.
It's basically these like VR headsets with cameras, and so you can project your Microsoft desktop onto the wall or something. And
That's augmented reality. Yeah. That's what.
Yeah,
RoboCop
pretty
does,
much. Yeah.
Right. Someone comes up. This thing pops up. Here's this guy's profile. You should shoot him now or something.
Yeah. That was one of the big updates to Windows 10, and Microsoft's betting on it to be big, and no one's buying it.
They just have to force the RoboCop software to use Windows with lots of forced updates. So
Yeah. That would be awesome. But the new update, everyone's a criminal today. Shoot them all. Oh, sorry about that.
Oops.
So this I thought is a pretty awesome idea. Behave.
Yeah. So this should have come out a few years ago. I don't know why this is just now coming out. It essentially looks for bad boys in your browser. So, for example, let's say you open up a website and it starts port scanning local IPs. There's nothing currently to stop a website from doing that. This will look for that kind of behavior and try to stop it. So basically, it's kind of like antivirus, anti-bad software practices for your web browser.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good idea, actually.
It is.
Like your antivirus ought to be doing.
It is a really good idea. We should have had this years ago.
Yeah.
Someone finally decided, hey, let's build this thing and look for some naughty JavaScript, and here we go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Good. And so I thought these were pretty entertaining frauds. So in addition to not actually stopping the virus, we also, the Trump administration dismantled all the agencies to prepare for viruses. So now in a rush, they're just buying junk. And so a bunch of fraudsters are doing it. So this guy started a company where he would take medical use prohibited masks from China, and he got a warehouse full of people paid to rip off this packaging and repackage it in this bag that doesn't say that, so they can then deliver it to hospitals. And they were sending them in California, I think in San Francisco, they were packaging them and selling them to Texas hospitals. And this is like the other guy that they needed to get vials for vaccines. So this guy just got Coke bottles and sold them like $7 million of Coke bottles which are completely inappropriate for putting vaccine in, but they bought them. And there's a whole bunch of these coronavirus fraud shops running. There's another guy that bought up all the hand sanitizer and like tried to mark it up. There's so many ways to profit off a poorly organized, chaotic time like this. Anyway, so this guy here was telling everyone and inviting a journalist to come visit this place and everything. Then the guy said, "Aren't you worried this is illegal?" And he said, "Well, I wasn't, but as I talk to you, I'm beginning to get a bad feeling about this." He said, "Oh, this is fine. I mean, they're still perfectly fine. It's just that they need to get rid of that label. This is like Hillary Clinton when she cut off the top secret thing before faxing stuff. Oh, just get rid of that label and it'll be fine." He didn't even think there's anything wrong with it. Oh, they just put that on there. That doesn't mean anything. Anyway, it's interesting to see. And that's why, the thing I'm amazed, I think the best thing in America is the free press. As far as I can tell, our government has completely collapsed into garbage, but the free press remains as sort of our last bastion of safety. Anyway.
It's also part of what's destroying our republic too, is the hyper-partisan press with make sure that the Democrats or Republicans win the next election and spin all the stories towards that. I mean, that kind of stuff is really ruining. I mean, that's why we have this cult of personality around Trump, is because there's 24-hour news cycles saying how great Trump is.
But that's nothing new. It was that way in the Civil War and in the Wild West.
I don't know. I think there is something new about the 24-hour, Fox News type or MSNBC type 24-hour propaganda of people speaking to you and being angry and coming across as trusted news sources.
The other thing is, I'm not sure that it was always easy to access that dopamine-inducing rage hit in your home 24/7 like it is now.
I emphatically disagree. If you look at the time of the Crusades, your local church and your local pub would be people screaming at you about how you have to go free the home of Christ our Lord, and they would just spray, just like Fox News, they would spray the propaganda until you all marched off to go do something stupid.
That's true, but it wasn't available in your home 24/7 on demand.
And also, there's a lot of science that goes into this propaganda nowadays that they just didn't have back then. Like, they know how to manipulate you, like to a level that is just ridiculous.
Well, now it's more organized and controlled. It used to just be good old-fashioned parochialism. The people in our little town all believe something stupid, and we hate everybody that isn't from our little town.
Yeah.
Now you have an organized leader leading them all somewhere. I don't know if that's worse or better.
Well, see, the thing is, though, now you have both. It compounds the problem versus, back in the olden days when you only had one aspect of that. Now you have both.
And the funny thing is, like, I would be totally okay with things like Fox News or MSNBC if they were like, this is the Republican news channel and this is the Democratic news channel, and they made it very clear what they were doing, but they intentionally make it very murky. In fact, what is like Fox News tagline? It's
You think anybody doesn't know what Fox News is?
Yes, I really do believe that. I've talked to Fox News enthusiasts that just love Fox News, and they literally think it is the only fair and balanced news channel out there.
That's fine, but they know that it's totally different than like CNN and the opposite side.
But there's a difference between knowing it's different and thinking like all the other sides are these liberal elites, trying to, brainwash people. Like the New York Times is just some liberal.
Isn't that true?
No, it's not.
Well, I think it is.
The New York Times is not some liberal brainwashing operation. I mean,
well, I think it totally is. I think it's exactly the same thing seen in a mirror. I mean, the way that the leftists hate Fox News and OAN and stuff and say, you guys are just brainwashing people and making them stupid, they feel exactly the same. It's just a mirror image.
There are mirror images of Fox. So that's why I was bringing up like MSNBC.
Yeah. She mentioned MSDNC, which is, pretty accurate.
Yeah, but there are things in the middle. There are news sources with journalistic ethics that really try to just bring you the news stories, get to the truth.
Well, sure. I think NPR is, and I think the Christian Science Monitor is.
You know what? They will say that NPR is part of a liberal conspiracy. I mean, it is.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
If you're way over on the edge, then you hate everything. When I tried listening to Berkeley Public Radio for a while. And if you listen to Berkeley Public Radio, they'll give the news, then they'll have a crystal healing ceremony, then they'll talk about magic, witchcraft stuff, and then we're having a roundtable tonight on why is it that when we talk to like right-wingers, they can't understand the way we talk. They feel like there's something wrong with us. I mean, on the left, there's no way over there that from their point of view, NPR is just fascist right-wing stuff.
It's still like that, Sam. Nothing has changed.
I mean, there's just a bell curve of madness. That's why, there was a survey that came out last week that I really like to see, because they said, Biden's going to win because a bunch of Trump supporters have turned against him because they say, I kind of liked lower taxes, but he's killing us with this coronavirus. And what is all this paranoid anti-science crap? They're not all complete fanatics. Like the ones that go to the rallies are the way lunatics. A bunch of people that are Trump supporters are not completely insane. They just hated Hillary and they kind of wanted to lower taxes, but they've noticed this is out of hand. I've had enough. I'm turning against him.
But also keep in mind too that there are a lot of teenagers that are watching Fox News, believe it or not, that are watching the news. A lot of people who are very young, people who are maybe have some cognitive issues, who really can't understand that these things are as biased as they are. Right. And the same thing with like MSNBC. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to do something like that, where you're going to pretend to be just a regular news service, but then be propaganda for a political party, that I think it's really important to make that clear to your audience, which is just not being done right now.
Well, I mean, are you going to make the churches have to admit how they're lying too? I mean, I think it's madness. I think everybody, whatever you do, there are a bunch of people that are on the other side that hate it, that would like to put some kind of warning label on it. This is no good from my point of view. I think, I don't know, I like the chaos of free speech.
I guess my thing is even if we made it explicitly clear and put the warning label on it, is that people wouldn't care anyway. They're still seeking that confirmation bias.
I think
they wouldn't care
from having a warning label on it. Oh, it must be good when they say the adult content warning. Oh, I better go to this one.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's true. But I mean, the thing that upsets me the most isn't the fact that there are these like diehard people that really believe in this stuff. That's fine for them. It's the people who get duped into it.
Yeah.
That's what's upsetting. And I want to make sure that people know what they're getting into when they start watching. When they're like, 13 years old and they're on the TV and they're switching channels and they're like, oh, Nickelodeon, that's cool. And then they see Fox News and they're making racist remarks and stuff. And they go, huh, is that what adults talk about? And it's like, I would like there to be like something that someone who's impressionable can be like, oh, okay, I get it. This is a Republican news channel. Okay, fine.
True. It is somehow more disturbing to see kids and teenagers parroting Fox News talking points than, boomers, because I guess in my mind anyway, I write that off as a lost cause and they're old enough to know better and understand that they are deliberately tuning into this propaganda that's going to satisfy confirmation bias, but the younger folks might not be aware of it, so that does make sense.
Well, the group that most strongly wants to prevent this corrupting influence in the media is the conservative Christian right that want to make sure their kids don't see any gay people or anything. They're the ones that most strongly feel like you have to prevent their kids from getting corrupted. So, I think it's madness I think the best thing is to just stay out of it and let people talk. But
I mean, here's where we agree. I think maybe we should make sure that we make parents aware that their kids should not be watching TV.
Well, but if you want to make people go crazy, even more than taking away their guns is telling them how to raise their kids. These are just places you can never go.
Believe me, Sam, I know this. You never tell, no matter how bad the parents are, you never tell them that they're wrong. You just be, yep.
You send
that's your style, okay.
That's right. I mean, this has got to be like that's cops hate these domestic disputes more than anything. Man, if I walk into that house, I'm going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really a tough one. This is the thing about our being a diverse society. If we really all had the same religion or something, then we wouldn't have so many fights about this. But the fact that we got a very diverse society means that whatever you believe, a bunch of people are doing whatever you most think they shouldn't be doing all around you all the time.
Mhm.
Anyway, so now we got hit the bottom here, right? Yeah, good. So we're up to how to tell whether the government has blocked your internet, which seems like a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be news to a lot of us, but it is a good thing, I think, to put out there because a lot of people aren't aware of it. And I mean, this didn't really give you like a lot of definitive answers, but it did center around the fact that usually what these governments use when they're preventing you from accessing things on the internet is DNS based, either spoofing or hijacking.
Yeah, India and Brazil, not so much in America yet. I think
Not yet.
in America, as you would expect, it's not done by the government. It's done by private companies like Comcast. To slow down Netflix, you have to go to their version. Pretty much everything in America is always about money.
Right. And I suspect that that'll become more prevalent as time goes by here as well, because we can't. It's like Trump saying that we need to reduce the testing the other day just because there are too many cases that make us look bad. You don't.
And they're canceling testing centers.
Yeah,
they're not kidding. They're closing them down.
You don't want people having access to the facts because it might make you look bad. So,
but at the same time, the companies who are having to pay for the health care of their employees anyway are now paying for the protection measures and the testing and stuff. Your company will protect you to some extent, like Amazon.
But I've been seeing really stupid things happening, and with many corporate initiatives. A lot of the time it's virtue signaling or just trying to be in compliance, cover their CYA measures in terms of being compliant with whatever they think the directives are. Like, for example, there's this one company in San Francisco a couple weeks ago that had a major outbreak amongst their employees. So what they did was, first, they told everybody they had to go. They told everybody on one team, not even everybody at the whole company working in the same place, which is like 300 people. They told everybody on one team that had the confirmed cases that they had to they had to be quarantined and get tested before they could come back to work. And this was on I want to say a Thursday, and then by Sunday night, they were like, you have to come into work tomorrow. On Monday, we're going to have a company here doing antibody testing, which is completely stupid because that doesn't tell you anything. And especially if you have an active infection, it's not going to catch it. Antibody testing is only somewhat effective significantly after you've been infected.
Yep.
So companies are doing shit like that just to get their employees back in, not because they care, but because they don't want to get sued later, or they're trying to be in compliance with whatever they think the rules are.
And this is the problem with no federal response. We ought to have official rules from the CDC pushed by the president, everybody agreeing, so every company is told what they have to do and then forced to do it by OSHA. But we're so far from that. Everybody's just making it up. Some of us are lucky, like you and I, working for the college, where we can trust our administration to be very professional and logical and protect us efficiently. Other people are at companies, that might have leaders that are kind of idiots,
I don't trust our administration
You don't?
because they hired some third-party company and they're paying them $75,000 to figure out how we can safely get back onto campus by the first of the year.
Ooh, boy.
Well,
Yeah,
everything is going to change totally by then. So whatever they're preparing is not going to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, I like your optimism there, Sam, but I can't co-sign on it as far as doing the sensible thing.
Obviously, everything is going to be online for a long time, and they're just fooling themselves.
It's not obvious to everyone.
But even before the coronavirus, 3 years ago, when I gave students the option of being online, the total number of students that showed up face-to-face has been 3.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I mean,
losers.
a lot of
right.
teachers who are just pushing to get us back in the classroom as soon as possible, which I think is super irresponsible.
Well, listening to Scott Galloway, I think colleges are going to die, just like restaurants and movie theaters and plane companies. Like half of them are going to be gone in a year, and probably 3/4 of them in 2 years. I mean, this from a financial point of view, I understand their pressure. They cannot survive with this social distancing, but I don't think they're going to survive. I don't think there's any hope. Our college might survive because it's basically a public service funded by the government, but probably only as a small shadow of its previous self.
Well, I'm never going to have a class that's attendance based again.
No, there's no reason for it.
Yeah, I'm never. I figured out, I had one class that I was teaching this semester that had been historically attendance based, and I finally figured out how to do that virtually, and that's how it's going to be going forward. Because it would be real hard for me to live with myself knowing that one of my students got this and possibly died because of I made them come to class. Like, there's just no way.
I know. I was feeling bad before they canceled DEF CON. I was thinking maybe I shouldn't even give a DEF CON talk because I'm attracting a bunch of people to come to one room and get sick. It's just like morally wrong. I know. I think that's why I think people think, oh, we'll have a vaccine in August, and by like January, everything will be perfectly fine, back to the way it was. That is just not going to happen. Not at all.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
My best guess is by fall of next year, we'll be back in person.
That's very optimistic, but
I know,
we'll see.
It's optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, they'll probably have some face-to-face classes even in the spring for things like phys ed and stuff, but it will be very different. Social distancing, plastic barriers, disinfecting everything all the time. But still, most people that don't actually have to be in the room are not coming back. Like everything in IT, we're not going to have any face-to-face classes to speak of for years, and neither will anybody else that can possibly do it remotely. There are a few things where you really have to be there, like swimming. You got to be in the room to swim in the pool, and probably dance and stuff. So I think like 20% of our classes will be face-to-face, running at half capacity in special rooms with disinfection and everything at a much higher cost, but most of it is going to go online and stay online. Anyway, so they're adding Doe to Apple.
Yep.
It's all been like a flaky add-on. They're building it into the OS?
Yes, they're building it into both OSs for the desktop, laptop, and for the phones.
It's not in Windows yet, is it? I don't think so.
No, I don't think it's in Windows.
Yeah, this is a very good idea, by the way. I mean, DNS snooping has been a huge privacy risk forever. It's ridiculous that we're using unencrypted UDP for DNS. Like, what the hell?
In 2020.
I know.
Yeah, so it will be there when you update to 11 and to 14.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the last year, browsers have switched to it and stuff, and they've all done the proof of concept to show that in fact it's fine, it works. Yeah, I think it's a real good step forward.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do have to say that I'm not a fan of all this encryption is someone who has learned everything about computers from herself and by playing around with computers, and opening up Wireshark and seeing what's going on. If I opened up Wireshark and just saw a bunch of encrypted traffic everywhere, I would have about half the understanding of how these systems work than I would now.
That's true, but then I discovered Chrome Developer Tools. That's where you go to see what's happening, which is very close to Wireshark, and it's actually more informative. So I think we can get there.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope that we can compensate with all this encryption with ways to have something like Wireshark where you can decrypt your traffic on your machine just to see what's happening, just for educational purposes, not for,
we all need to get used to just importing a certificate into the OS and then using a proxy. That's
exactly
the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's no different than everything. We just
what I would really like to see is a universal standard for encryption like SSL, because right now there's a lot of protocols that don't use SSL. So even if you were to have a imported certificate or something, it's still not going to decrypt SSH. So even if you or SFTP. So even if you were to have like your own certificate, it's not going to decrypt those standards.
Yeah, well, there are an awful lot of subtle encryption use cases, although what we got now is pretty much chaos.
Yep. I would like to have one standard encryption standard that you can, basically play around with.
It reminds me of the XKCD where they say, there's 14 competing standards. Let's just write one that covers all use cases. Now there's 15 standards.
Exactly.
That's the thing about the internet. Everybody just writes everything and you just have a sprawling mess. But a few things win in the market and become kind of leaders, like HTTPS is a big winner. DNSSEC is totally a loser. IPsec is an edge case. There's a few that become popular. And I think most people like to just use HTTPS for everything. That's the winner, especially with that thing you found last week, which I've been playing with a little bit more, where you have everything on one port. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I was totally surprised. I was like, hey, you can run, because it just looks like, is the first packet being sent out a TLS header, or is it a GET request?
I know.
And depending on what it is, it just like reroutes you to the right place.
Yeah, I'm in the process. I'm probably going to add that project, but I haven't got it ready yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then we've got Microsoft closing their retail stores. I thought this was big news, and when I put on Twitter, everyone said, "Microsoft, you have stores? Where are the stores?" And I said, "Now that you mentioned it, stores, where are they?" But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there was one at like Stanford Shopping Center, and there's a few in San Francisco.
One in Cerritos.
Yeah, one in Cerritos. And my big thing is,
it looks a lot.
Why did it take so long for them to close down? How are they able to stay in business for over a year? They were complete Apple Store ripoffs.
And I guess they'll sell those Surface tablets. And what else? Is there anything Microsoft makes?
That's it. Just the Surface tablets. I mean, maybe some Microsoft software there. But the thing is, look at that. That is the Apple Store.
Of course.
But branded with Microsoft. And you just can't do that.
Earphones and stuff? I mean, I don't think so.
I mean, no. I mean, you can. The thing is, when you enter a market, you can't just copy a competitors and just be like, okay, we're done. Microsoft has its own brand.
They have Silverlight. They do this over and over. They march into a market owned by somebody. They have their imitation Java, VB script. They do this over and over and over. They march into a market owned by somebody else, make an inferior ripoff, and then are surprised when it fails.
Exactly. I mean, they could have had their own identity, their own store brand. They could have done something much different than Apple, but they just decided, oh, Apple's doing something popular. Let's just copy them. Does that not look like the Apple Store, just with like a colorful, like it's.
And Microsoft has record profits.
Yes.
It's a very successful business to have 4 flops and a hit. 4 flops and a hit. It works for them.
No, I mean, that's a good strategy. I think in IT it's kind of the Google strategy where you just kind of throw everything at the wall and you see what sticks, and then you work on those projects. I mean, that's a good strategy because you never kind of know what's going to work and what's going to not work ahead of time. But so the Microsoft stores are finally getting closed down. I have no idea why they're able to stay open this long. But however, they're not going to close down all the locations. Yeah. They're going to turn some of the locations into the Microsoft Experience Centers. So just like basically ads for Microsoft products.
Which is what this was anyway.
That's what I thought was, I mean.
It makes me think of like the Scientology reading rooms.
Yes.
Go in and like read about the glories of Microsoft.
I mean.
I guess my question is, how selective will their experience centers be? Because like Cisco's, you can only walk in if you're invited.
And it'll be for everyone, I'm sure.
But a place to set foot in.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cisco is aimed at a very specific subset of IT professionals, whereas Microsoft has a much broader range, and they have their Office products and their Windows products.
Not walk, but
I mean, I thought that's what their stores were before, but
yeah, that's right.
I never went into one.
I mean, the only reason Apple stores exist is because they don't let anybody discount their stuff. So if you went to a Microsoft store, I would just like buy it online. Of course, I guess if you really need an official Microsoft laptop, it'd be the same. But normally, if you go to like a computer store, you don't buy anything because you can get it cheaper online. You just go there to try it. Then you go buy it online.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's kind of funny. But it's easy to laugh at Microsoft. They seem like nuts, but they're rolling in the dough. There's something right about what they're doing.
It's called Office, Sam.
Office and the cloud, Azure, just like Amazon. I think Azure is their number one moneymaker now.
I still don't know how they got that DoD bargain, but they did.
Aren't they still? Isn't Amazon fighting them on that?
They are, but even so, Azure is a huge hit. They're making a pile of money.
Yeah, I don't understand how, but they are.
I do, because I used to be teaching Microsoft tech support. Before I got any good at Linux, I thought you had to use Windows for everything. And I was only comfortable with everything being on Windows. It's like a religion. A bunch of people are scared of Linux and they want everything on Windows. That's why Windows subsystem for Linux is a hit for them. Oh, I can use Linux without leaving Windows.
That
Windows
Azure,
is like an addiction.
that Azure user experience though is just brutal.
It is. It is. Azure is horrible, but it's still Windows. So they stick to it like a drug addict, like little kids are now trained that everything has to have like sugar in it, like piles of sugar and everything. And you
It's
think
true though. We have we have someone in our department like that who just if it's Windows, then it's good.
Well, I used to have another guy in the department before your time who was like really an insider at Microsoft. And it was kind of hilarious at department meetings. He would say, well, you should use Bing instead of Google. Oh, you should. He really thought you should use the Microsoft everything for everything, and that this was obvious and everyone should agree with him. Obviously, we should all be using the Microsoft product for everything. We're like, what the hell are you talking about? He said, but I thought everyone knew that. It's so much better. I said, and you have to be that guy if you want to work at Microsoft. You have to be in their religion. You have to drink the Kool-Aid.
I mean, and that's probably one of the big problems with Microsoft is that they have these like groups of religions and they think that their products are so much better just by the fact that it's Microsoft. And instead of innovating and making things actually better,
It is funny though being in the Microsoft office and watching them struggle to use their own products that are broken and don't work.
Yeah, however, I must say open source products are not better in that regard. I spend most of my life trying to make somebody's open source stuff actually work and discovering that, of course, those libraries aren't around anymore and this only works on Red Hat. And 36 hours later, I get it working only to find out it actually isn't worth anything.
I had when I was doing the OSCP, I initially started writing the report in OpenOffice. And because I had all these screenshots, it would just crash constantly. So I'm like, okay, so I'll just run it in Windows. Maybe it's just an Arch Linux thing. No, in Windows, it would do the exact same crashes. How can you not make a word processor after, God, how long has LibreOffice been around? It was OpenOffice first, and then it was like first StarOffice. This has been in development for probably as long as I've been alive. And they still can't get it stable enough for me to do a report. I mean, this is ridiculous.
But you know who also has not done that is Microsoft. I used to make my lectures in Microsoft Office, and for 12 years, it has had a bug that if you paste in screenshots, after you put in about 10 of them, they all just turn into red X's and you can't see them anymore. And when you save it, it's not saved. And there is no solution, and they have had no solution in 15 years. And an endless chain of screaming people.
And
that's
you
why I switched to just making web pages for everything.
Yeah.
Because I can put an image on a web page and it actually stays there and people can see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of twisted. Anyway, so this one here, I just thought it's kind of funny. The cryptocurrency, and the first thing I thought when they said we're going to have cryptocurrency is it's on the internet, so everybody will just steal it. And that's, of course, totally what happens. The entire nation of North Korea is largely funded by stealing cryptocurrency, and the Russians are doing it too. So these guys have stolen 200 million from like 5 exchanges they know about, but they've done another 10 to 20 they haven't found out about. And the exchanges where people aren't just openly stealing the money are pump and dump scams and price fixing scams and false volumes. It's what happens when you get the government out of your money. All the crooks can just do crime all day. And there's a reason why the Security Exchange Commission and everything, they say, oh, you did that to run up your overhead. I said, no, we did that because crooks keep stealing the money. And you have to have all these administrative controls. So here that New Zealand froze the money in BTCE, another for money laundering. I mean, I thought that was the entire point of all cryptocurrency was money laundering. There's no other reason to use it at all, but they're actually punishing people for doing money laundering. And even the Russians are punishing these guys for money laundering. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
But I know the rule, most cybercrime outfits in Russia, the rule is you cannot target Russians. They will totally protect you if you target other people. But if you actually steal money from Russians, they will actually hurt you. Anyway, so I just thought it's good, clean fun. Cryptocurrency is another religion, right? A bunch of people will never stop saying it's wonderful, like John McAfee and the whole gang. But in many ways, I don't know why it exists at all. Real people use Visa and MasterCard and cash, and they don't need this stingy stuff, and it doesn't have any advantage that I can understand. But the believers are sure it's going to solve every problem in the world any day now. Anyway, then San Quentin has got coronavirus, which...
Yeah, I had to include this little bonus last minute link just because it's totally insane, and yet another way that illustrates the totally insane things that our government does. So essentially what happened was there was no coronavirus at San Quentin. Nobody tested positive during March, April, or May, which is amazing in and of itself. And then someone made the brilliant decision to transfer 121 prisoners from the prison that had like the biggest outbreak in California down in San Bernardino County.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, it started a massive outbreak. And it's really bad because they've got all these people housed in really close quarters, really close conditions, dealing with all of the same staff and medical care professionals. And it's not only been a massive outbreak amongst the inmates, but also amongst the staff. Like 40 staff have caught it so far. And this is crazy on so many levels because you've got these inmates that are trapped in there and unable to practice any kind of social distancing, who may be in there for some like relatively minor crime, and this could end up turning into a death sentence for them.
I don't think you get sent to San Quentin for a minor crime.
I said relatively minor, and we don't really know because we've had people transferred from other prisons to San Quentin due to overcrowding problems.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have our California death row there, but they also have people there for nonviolent low-level crimes as well as higher-level crimes, like all mixed up. Oh. And you know, part of the issue with this is because of that situation there. Recommendations were made that they reduce the prison population by 50%. To slow the spread. And now they're talking about a massive release on July 1st, which could really...
That's what you need. And they probably let them out in the general population to infect everybody because they probably won't like give them anywhere to live or anything.
Exactly. So, I mean, these problems are just compounding on themselves. So,
and you can't blame the right-wingers for this. This is in San Francisco, the Democratic utopia.
Well, yeah, though, I mean, this is also decisions that were made on a higher level, like state basis. And I mean, it's just totally insane. And people, I had seen this, I'd seen this commissioner, I believe it was for like Arkansas state prisons or something, saying like, yeah, you know, we have a problem, but these prisons are closed systems, so it's not like it's going to be a threat to the general community. And I mean, first off, like, that's still pretty messed up because it's like you're writing off any inmates or staff that work there as completely expendable and not worthy of caring about if there's a massive outbreak and people die. But second of all, they're not closed systems. I mean, that's you know, people that work in these facilities are going home every night to their families, and you know, they have a massive turnover rate. Like, people are getting either released every day or every week, or coming into the facility every day or every week. So I mean, there's a lot of influx and outflux from these facilities. So it's really disingenuous argument to say, oh well, it's a closed system. It's not going to affect everybody else.
Yeah, it's this virus is revealing the incredible amount of stupidity at every level in America. Just an incredible number of Americans just
And
are too
like,
stupid to participate in basic, simple hygiene. And other nations can handle this. You don't need like a lot of money. Like Vietnam is virus free. Like what the hell? I mean, you don't even need advanced medicine. All you need is like common sense. Stay at home if you're sick. Have clear rules. When you have a lockdown, make sure people really lock down. It's
and I mean, I guess it's always been a thing here, but one of the things that's really become evident to me over the last year is that there's no accountability for our government. Like, you can just continually screw up over and over and over again. You can kill thousands of people.
Yeah.
And there's no consequences to this at all.
Well,
in fact, you've
maybe
got
you'll
people that want to
eventually
reelect you as president.
Well, it's possible that you might actually get voted out at some level. And I think we might have achieved that.
Like, it blows my mind thinking back to 9/11, where it was like 3,000 people that died. And that was horrible.
Yeah.
That was horrible on every level.
Yeah.
But it's like, that was 3,000 people. Now we're up over 100,000 people, and people a lot of people just don't seem to care at all, which really blows my mind.
A lot of people don't believe it's happening at all. They think it's just fake, which is really impressive stupidity. It's like cult group stupidity where you drink this poison and our God told us it'll be fine. It's just amazing how crazy Americans are. It's
now we've become the shithole country. Now we can't travel anywhere. There's no going to Europe for us.
Or to New York. Can't go to New York anymore. New York or New Jersey. They closed the border. That's why they said, as the federal government does nothing, we're actually splitting into small fiefdoms. And
Hawaii closed the border.
Yeah. And I think we should probably do it here. There's a time when we had a little consortium of states out here, California and Oregon, and I think Washington formed their own little consortium to do the lockdown. And I think we need to do it again. And after we've cut down the cases, we need to close the borders. So I think in a way, Trump likes to compare himself to Lincoln, but he's like the opposite. Lincoln held the Union together, and Trump is like splitting it apart into like smaller subsets.
I don't know, man. Every single day, I'm like, I should have just stayed in New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I heard about Trump blocking the immigration visas. And then people are saying this is a terrible idea. But I'm thinking, who the hell would want to come here right now anyway?
Right.
Are you nuts? But, they're thinking long term that they could get a job and a career here, I guess. But boy, I wouldn't think there'd be too many people wanting to come in right now. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop the recording unless any of you have more remarks. All right.